Right. Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? I am back with something a little different. Today, I have a special guest, my first guest actually ever on this channel. This guy, Ian Waffles. Introduce yourself.
Hey man, thanks for having me. This is super exciting. So I'm Ian Waffles. I have a YouTube channel where I talk about anime videos or anime characters, but I make videos on them. Blah blah blah. Mostly talking about My Hero Academia, or I have a few miscellaneous videos. So if you are interested in that kind of stuff, you can check it out. But today we're not here to talk about that. I'll let you go ahead.
Yes. So anyone who's been watching my videos for a while now has heard me talk about how my favorite era, or I guess not era, but my favorite aspect of the Sonic franchise is the pre-reboot Archie Sonic the Hedgehog comic books. And sure enough, Ian over here is also quite fond of those. So we've been wanting to get together to talk about them for a while now. This is like over a year in the making, but
Definitely. Ever since I found your channel, I think I've been bombarding you with comments being like, please hang out with me and talk about Sonic.
Hey, you know what, man? Like, people who are willing to talk about Sonic are in short supply, so I get it. So I feel like to kick this off, we should just simply talk about what are some of our favorite like issues or arcs of Archie Sonic. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, sure. So when we're discussing this and we talk about the pre-reboot era, are we just specifically talking about Flynn, or would you like to also toss in if we have any Carl Bowlers or Ken Penders or kind of just early stuff that we really like, or do we want to strictly keep this because it's a big series? So
I mean, I think we can toss in whatever. I just simply think me personally, I feel like the series is base level of quality drastically rose with Flynn, so I feel like that will be where most of talk about.
100%. So,
but absolutely, yeah. If you have it, because I have some stuff from pre Flynn that I want to kind of touch on real quick. So if you have anything from pre Flynn, by all means.
All right, cool. So all right, so definitely my favorite arc in the entire series, voice crack, is the Iron Dominion arc. I absolutely love this arc because it basically brings together all the things that I enjoy about the pre-reboot Archie, which is that Ian Flynn was tasked with this gigantic world that had been going on for like probably over a decade at that point, or maybe a little under. And so instead of like writing off all the stuff that had happened before, he decided, you know what? I'm going to embrace this insanity and I'm going to try to make it really good. And so to grab like Monkey Khan, the Iron Queen, Jun-kun, all these different like aspects of like these characters, having this be after the climactic battle with Dr. Eggman and having like Snively rise to the top and all this stuff. It was just such a fascinating experience. And I just think it allowed Sonic to have some of his best moments in terms of just like his personality and being hyper competent and just being the charismatic guy we know. And just in terms of like the things that led to afterwards, like with Nicole or giving Sally back her confidence, because I lump in the Sonic Universe arc in with this too.
Oh, same.
Yeah, and so it was so cool to have like this really giant arc and have this nice satisfying conclusion where they come back and they, Sonic fights a dragon and we're using all of their enemy forces against them. You have like Lian Da doing stuff in the background, just all these moving pieces that just make it endlessly entertaining for me, because with some of the other arcs that, even though I love them, they have kind of like a straightforward through line, like we're fighting Scourge or we're going after Eggman, or especially with the universe arcs, they have to be very concise. But this was the arc that I felt had the most going into it, and it worked out the most. And it's hilarious to me that Ian Flynn has confirmed in his podcast that he pitched this idea as a joke so that he could pitch a different idea. So like basically like pitch this idea and then them say like, that's ridiculous, you can't do that. And then they're like, oh, could I do this idea? And then they would let him. But instead they just said, yeah, go for it. And so he did it.
Well, and I feel like that's really a testament to the quality, or maybe not quality, but you know what I mean, of pre-Genesis Archie versus now. Because now, because back then they were like, sure, do whatever, we don't care. Like, whereas now it's like, okay, so help me, if Shadow cracks a smile, we will have your ass. Like,
yeah, definitely. So that's one of my arcs, but I'll let you pick one next if you'd like.
I'm gonna be completely honest, I didn't actually pick like one. I feel like if I'm, you know what, I'll say this just because I was looking at them prior to this, and it's funny, Iron Dominion is actually one that I kind of like skipped over when I was skimming through my issues before this, but I'm gonna say I'm gonna say, if we're talking about pre-Flynn stuff, real quick, I want to give some credit to Sonic Adventure 2.5. Now that it does still have like some weirdness to it, because the dialogue back then was very much like, I don't want to say Shakespearean, but it was very much like,
if it's Ken Penders, it's very old man, flowery. I'm talking in circles and winding and philosophizing.
yeah.
Yes.
But like, you know, people will like, and there's certainly like some stuff that people would look at and be like, well, like the art in those earlier, the art in a lot of older Archie stuff is weird because, like, you know, obviously you've seen stuff like, oh, you know, Sally doesn't wear any clothes. Isn't that weird? But like, for the most part, that's fine because he's drawn like an anthropomorphic cartoon character. But there are also parts where she's drawn with like human proportions, and it's like,
very human proportions.
Like, what are you doing here, guys? But
yeah,
to talk about what I like about it, I feel like, for me, the heart of the book has always been Sonic and Sally's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons that like post reboot just knocked me off real quick. Like, I probably could have dealt with all of the other crap that the post reboot did if Sonic and Sally's relationship had stayed intact.
Yeah.
Just to kind of give a baseline of, you know, how important I see as that an element in the book. And that arc, along with Heart Held Hostage, which predates Sonic Adventure 2.5, which, real quick, that should show you the amount of freedom they had back then. Because if Ian Flynn wanted to call an arc in IDW Sonic Adventure 2.5, he would be slapped across the face and laughed out of the room.
Like, his face with shadow.
Well, and that's another thing that's interesting about that arc, is that it shows you what happened when Shadow falls from space. Like these, do we ever find out where they called the BEM? Or something?
they're the BEM. Yeah.
Yeah, they caught him and they filled him with something that let him become Super Shadow again, so he could fight the Zorda.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't really have anything specific to say about this arc. Just like, again, I think that one scene is really cool of King Max being like, whoa, Robotnik, hold your horses. If you want our help, you're gonna have to give up something in return. So that was cool. Sonic's big sacrifice at the end, which I think is just straight up taken from Crisis on Infinite Earths, is
probably
really cool. I am not fond of that which followed this arc, but Sonic Adventure 2.5, and I'll even lump in Heart Held Hostage because they kind of go hand in hand, I think are some of the best, along with Endgame, but maybe we'll get there later, of what pre-Flynn Archie had to offer.
Well, if I could add one more to that era, as far, because basically what I figured I'd do is I would say one, and then you could say one, and we'll just go back and forth. But okay. But I agree with you totally on that. Heart Held Hostage is one of my favorites as well, mostly because the art is so good, but especially because of Mina Mongoose, who is personally one of my favorite of the comics, or of the comic original characters. But we can talk about her specifically later once we get to our favorite characters. Yes. But I really like that section too. I'm really partial to Battle for Angel Island. Do you remember that one?
No, I will say, full disclosure, my knowledge of pre-reboot Archie, or not pre-Flynn Archie, is Sonic Archives Volume 12 through, let me look at the shelf real quick.
Okay, because this is after he gets back from space.
Oh, then yeah, no. I after he gets back from space, I read like the Homecoming arc, then I skipped to like the first few issues prior to Flynn taking over, so I'd have context for Flynn, and then I started reading. So I don't think I've read this. Okay,
well, just to give you an idea for what it's like is, so basically, it's a four-parter where we're dealing with the fact that in the year time skip after Knuckles died and became green for a little bit and had his little fling, he comes back and he doesn't have his powers anymore. And Eggman, in the year that Sonic is gone in space, he takes over Angel Island, and so it's this big mission where the Chaotix and Sonic plus Knuckles, of course, they go to basically fight and take back the island. And the art for this four-parter is done by John Gray. And John Gray, I don't know how he does it, but he always manages to pack so much personality and little details that are just telling a separate story under the main one. So you'll have like a fight scene, but in the background you'll have like from panel to panel this little progression of like Vector and Mighty like fighting Legionnaire guys, and Mighty, because he's so strong, his fights are literally that he just flicks the guys and knocks them around, and then by the end of it, Vector is climbing on top of the bodies and posting a white flag that says, "Where's the challenge, challenge, I ask. And this is all going on while plot stuff is happening in the foreground. And this is just constantly happening throughout the whole thing. He draws Super Knuckles. Super Knuckles gets to come back as Knuckles regains all his powers. And there's just these great fights and conflicts that lead to just such a... Just like it, you legit feel like they took back the island, and you feel for it whenever Knuckles has to go, you know what, Dad? Like, you were here trying to protect this island, but I've made Mobius my island to protect. And so there's still work to do back home. And that kind of causes a feud, but it's this really great thing. Also, we find out that Knuckles is the Avatar, like not even like a different word for it. He just is the Avatar. So
yeah, Knuckles is like, Dad, I know you're gonna try and kill me later during the Enerjack arc, and I do not approve.
So I'm peacing out. You better not let this place get captured, because then I might have to come back
again.
Again, I'll return to Angel Island, the Revengeance. So yeah, that's an arc I really love. Of course, you haven't read much of it, so I can only really pitch it to you. But I would definitely say to anybody who loves the comic and hasn't thought of those hasn't read much of that era, definitely give that one a shot. It's pretty standalone too. So
yeah. Real quick, are we throwing it back over to me for another one?
Yeah, unless you want to move on to something else. But yeah, that's just how I figured we would do this.
I will say I'm gonna squish two arcs together: Eggman Empire and House of Cards.
Yes,
are ridiculous, are criminally good. Like, the only problem I would say for the Eggman Empire arc is, well, first of all, the Egg Beater is hands down, with no contest, better than any other mech Eggman has ever piloted.
Yeah, I mean, it beats Sonic.
well, I mean, like in terms of that, in terms of feats, definitely, but also in terms of design, like I think it's better than the Death Egg robot, the Egg Dragoon, the other Death Egg robot, the other Death Egg robot.
It's incredible. Like, it has a bumper for a shield, which is so genius because in the games, yeah, you can't break those things, and they're constantly defeating Sonic. So then he has the ball and chain from Green Hill. So like, it's a Green Hill reference that's not obnoxious, and it's not just him using the same Eggmobile with the ball and chain. So he uses that as a weapon. He has the mustache of Dr. Eggman. It's so cool.
Like, I remember it actually took me a bit before I noticed the mustache. It was like, oh god, but it doesn't look dumb. Is the thing, like, it looks cool.
It's
like
seamless.
Train of thought, come back to me. I will say though, with your Green Hill reference, this was before we had learned to hate Green Hill. Like, this was what, 2008 maybe, when Eggman Empire came out.
Oh yeah, of course. But what I mean is that even if you looked at it now, I think you would, like, your brain wouldn't immediately register of like, oh right, that's the ball and chain from the first level in Green Hill, like, because it's so like seamlessly woven in, you know.
Or is to somewhere Takashi Iizuka is maliciously rubbing his hands, like, yes, Green Hill, yes. But the only problem I would say that the Eggman Empire arc really has is I think the Egg Beater gets beaten too easily at the end. Like, I get what they were going for, because it's like, oh, well, you designed this specifically to beat me, but if I throw all of my friends at you, then it'll... But, like, they build up this thing that it's like, it's so tough, it beats Sonic, no problem. And then, like, they beat it in, if I'm being generous, 3 pages, but more like 2 pages.
Yeah, it's pretty short. I could see that. I think for me,
but also giving him, like, a distinct personality. And I think Archie is really the best that it's ever been.
The best Eggman. He's terrifying.
Absolutely.
He's literally the devil. He has a body count.
Yeah. Well, and it's weird, 'cause, like, with Sad AM, you have, like, the dark, menacing, which, by the way, every time I read Eggman in any comic, even IDW, I still read him with Jim Cummings' voice.
I do too. Sometimes I'll fluctuate to Mike Pollock if it's particularly comedic, but I like to think that since this is technically Robo Robotnik from an alternate dimension, I like the idea that when he got this new body, like, it can sometimes, in my headcanon, it can shift between the two.
Yeah. So. Well, and it's, by the way, that was during a part where I had not read. How the hell did...
Like, it's literally in the middle of just, like, a random, like, Eggman fight Sonic, like, episode, basically, is how it's portrayed. And then it's literally like, and then aliens abducted us. They abduct them, and they're like, huh, So robots versus fleshy, stinky little Yen and Snively still have to remain in the flesh, and Sonic and Tails get to return back to being flesh. The Archie comics, where literally Station Square, its self-defense system is like, Eggman kind of sucks. Let's launch some nukes. And they do that. And they're like, hey, Sonic, so I don't know if you knew this, but nukes are bad for the environment. And they're like, dude, everyone's going to die. Why would it do that? It's like, I don't know, man. Like, what do we do about it? And so Sonic and Tails trick Eggman to open up the shield so that the nuke can go into them, kill everyone inside except for Sonic and Tails. And then Sonic and Tails are like, I think Eggman's gone. I don't know. Let's go to bed. And they just don't care. And then we find out later that since Eggman and Snively are robots, that they've just been hopping around into robot bodies. And like, there's like a part where Robotnik is in like a robot, like, body that's like moving around on a treadmill, basically, like around Robotropolis, and he's like, "Arr, Sonic, I'm coming to get you!" And then they destroy that. So, like, at a certain point, I guess they were just like, "I don't even care anymore. Just make him a human." And so, yeah,
that is amazing.
That's to me, the joy of pre-Flynn reboot or pre-boot era is just the feeling you just got from me describing that. I didn't even talk about the time that Dulcie the Dragon had an abusive boyfriend and we killed him with the SWAT team. So, like, there's just a lot of stuff to enjoy from that era.
What's really funny is, I will say, Ian Flynn does a great job of clean. So in comics, there's an idea when a new writer takes over for an already established character called cleaning house, where basically, for people who don't know, is when a new writer takes over for an already established character, and he goes, I don't really want to do what the last guy was doing, so he just throws it. He gets rid of it. You see this all the time with Spider-Man. When Nick Spencer took over for Dan Slott in the current Amazing Spider-Man run, he, in like one issue, I think, got rid of everything Dan Slott had done, more or less. But what I think is really clever about what Flynn does is he cleans house, but he does it like respectfully. Like, Sir Connery dies, but he dies like heroically, and he sacrifices himself.
And Sonic even like remembers him, and go ahead.
And Tommy the Turtle gets like an awesome like supersonic boss fight, and like then the Egg Fleet blows him out of the sky.
Sonic catches his ashes, and he cries and says he was the greatest freedom fighter ever. I'm like, I guess you're right. I kind of believe you.
Yeah, like he cleans house, like he does, like you said about how everything up to like Man Empire was kind of table setting, which, by the way, I've never heard that before, but that is a great way of saying it. But again, he takes his time. He doesn't just go meh, he doesn't like throw all of the dishes onto the table and then go, no, it's my thing now. Like he respects what came before it, but he still does his own thing.
Well, and he kept so much, and then not only did he keep it, but he decided, you know what? Hey, you remember that gag character from like the Mike Gallagher days back when it didn't even have a plot? Harvey Who? He's a main character now. And I'm just like, you didn't even have to do that for the Secret Freedom Fighters that Silver's a part of.
Oh God, yeah, I remember that.
Like, you didn't have to do that. Like, nobody was asking. Yeah, no one was asking for Harvey Who. You know what also people weren't asking for? So do you know why Silver fights that version of Enerjack? Do you know that, like, where that's from?
The Dark Enerjack?
Yeah. So did you know that it was actually based on something pre-established, or did you think it was just like a made up?
I knew, because there's a little box in it when he talks to Leonda. Like, I tried to go back in time to stop it, but I failed. And it's like Archie Sonic issue 1, whatever. But I never really like went back to it.
Yeah, so there's just like this during the Green Knuckles era. There's like just this random section where Johnny Ka, as she's called in that, she comes back and she's like got to save her father. And then at the very end, she comes back and she's like, Mom, you said that someone killed Dad. And she's like, yeah, I kind of sort of lied. It's actually your dad who's evil and became a monster and killed Remington. Anyway, we should probably go stop him now. And it's like, probably should have told me that earlier. And of course, they did this all the time, where they would then have an end part where it would go, if you want to know more about these characters, kids, write into us. And of course, no one did, because it's stupid. So Ian Flynn was like, I'll take that. And he made like the coolest arc ever. The Enerjack versus Silver arc is like his crowning best thing ever he's ever done. It's amazing.
Oh, it is great. It is great. And I'm not just saying that because Silver's my favorite character. That arc is... I
mean, Silver's not even my favorite character, and I love it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the weird thing about what Flynn does, is because I was earlier today I was just skimming through like my volumes, which I'm sure are worth like hundreds of dollars now because Archie Sonic is no longer a thing. But
Yeah,
like
you can't officially buy it anywhere. So.
the scene where actually to get back to House of Cards, where Tails' dad, Amadeus, is going to the castle to Elias, and it's like there's this scene where they're facing down one another and they draw their weapons. It's like I should not care about either of these characters, but I do. Like,
yeah. And speaking of House of Cards, it's pretty much the culmination of, I feel, because this will be perfect because it'll give me an excuse to talk about Sonic, is basically like the way Sonic is portrayed in this comic. It genuinely, without giving him like a full arc, because it's like that classic comic book thing of like the illusion of change, right? And stuff, and the Tails House of Cards arc, like people meme on it because the covers are like over dramatic as heck and they're ridiculous. Where like Sonic's like ripping up,
Sonic's like ripping the wanted poster.
I understand, but like people really downplay that arc as just like, oh, they're fighting over a girl, and it's like, no, like Tails brings up a lot of things that Sonic does. The way that he doesn't take him seriously, the way that during certain events he would just treat him like, oh, don't worry, I know what's best for you. And the thing with the Fiona situation, it wasn't about like, oh, you're dating the girl I like. It's the fact that he did so without like even seeming to care about Tails' feelings in the matter. And
it's
so
like
all that,
code, dude.
Well, and all of it just built up to this climax of like his dad goes to jail, and Sonic's just like, well, duh, what that idiot think was going to happen, and it's like, that's Tails' dad, Sonic.
Yeah.
And the reason he says it isn't because like he's trying to put Tails down, but like because he defends himself. He's like, well, Tails risked his life to get his parents back, and now they're pulling stunts like this. I'm just looking out for him. But he says like his probably one of my favorite Sonic lines ever, just because of how like ridiculous it is, but it's so in character.
I know the line.
Which is like, oh, you might be his parents, but the kid, he respects me. In fact, he practically worships me, so he'll get over it.
I don't even think he says practically, because I was just looking at this earlier. I was like, oh my god, like I think he straight up just says the kid worships me.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what he's implying regardless. And like Tails just decks him, and it's this great moment of Tails, like Sonic. Again, this kind of duality of his character where he's like, don't, I understand you're mad at me. And then as Tails starts to beat up on him a little more, like Sonic starts to get annoyed. Like, all right, buddy, like I'm trying to, he says this thing of like, Fiona was just there. And so I just went with it. I went with it like I do everything else. I just do. And if that's not like the It Doesn't Matter theme song of Sonic in a nutshell, of like Sonic's just living, like it's like it says, I'm just living by my own feelings. I don't know what's wrong or right. I just go how I feel. And that's what Sonic is in this. And I love that Ian Flynn took the time to like point that out as a flaw, humble Sonic to the fact he's like, cry to me, like, I am sorry. Like,
Yeah.
And I love it. So sorry, I went on for a long tangent for that, but
oh no, it's fine. I think it's interesting, Eggman Empire, where Sonic's trying to be like, you guys all stay back. I'm going to go get our friends back. And he's like trying to go to the lab to like get like weapons or whatever. And Tails just straight up goes like, so do you just like want to go get your ass kicked again, or do you want us to like help you? Like,
yeah, and Sonic's like offended.
Yeah, and then and then Eggman, oh well, okay, Sonic, I think we could go do that. Like,
yeah, of course. Well, and I love that there's like a progression too, where like Sonic gets destroyed, and especially like not to downplay the point, like the fight he has with Eggman is brutal. Like his eyes swelling up, Sonic looks terrified whenever Eggman's like holding him up to his face. They have the part where Sonic like literally like breaks for a sec, where he's like, oh, we've reached your limit, and he's like, limit, and like he runs across what I love about that is, again, that's feeding into this idea of like his ego, of like Eggman's like taunting him about all these other things, like, oh, your love life sucks, you couldn't save your dad. But the moment he's like, we've reached your limit, like basically like just talking down to like his very being of like, you're like being a hero, and he like breaks for a sec, limit, and it doesn't work. And you could tell that like if Tails didn't show up, because there's the two things that drive Sonic, which is his ego and his friends. If Tails hadn't shown up to like be like, hey, we're okay, he probably would have just laid there, honestly, and just like wallowed. And what I love is that you have this progression afterwards where he's like, oh, don't worry, we don't want to be late for the party. And then Amy talks to him and he's like, yep, knothole's done. So it's like he's trying to like put on this front of like being tough. And then as Tails keeps talking to him, he gets more and more annoyed, like you said, until finally they snap at each other. And it's just it's just great to see like Sonic's a person, you know? Like it's not even like this
is he busts when they get to Robotropolis or New Megapolis or whatever it's called at that point. They bust down the door, or well, I'm getting caught up on semantics here. They bust in, and Sonic goes. He has some like piffy one-liner, and then they see that like Charmy is in the egg pod getting his life force drained or whatever,
and
then
immediately drops it.
He immediately like his facial expression changes. He goes, "No, I can't be late again," or like he says something like that. Like
yeah, he's like,
it's
"No,
like kind of what I said before.
Yeah, I can't be too late again." Yeah,
yeah. It's like what I said before. Like this stuff is like a front. Like Sonic, like there is some probably aspect of him buying his own hype, but then that's what's great about House of Cards is that as soon as he starts to actually buy his own hype, that's when he like falls. Like, you know, the famous line, "Pride cometh before the fall."
Yeah.
You know, that's when, you know, stuff starts to go wrong for him. That's when his relationships start to devolve. That's when, you know, it's really interesting. And I think what's great about that fight that Tails and him have is that he, like you said, like, you know, people, you know, kind of boil it down to just, oh, they're fighting over. Tails like what, 11 at that point, maybe 12. Like
I think he's go ahead. Yeah, he's like 12.
When you're that young, like, you know, everything is like bigger. Like, so like having a crush on a girl and then your best friend like taking that away from you,
swoops in and dates her like it's nothing, and then dumps her like it's nothing, and doesn't even talk to you about it. She's like, whatever. Like he literally says this. It's one of my favorite Sonic lines. He goes, "If she keeps this up, Tails can have her."
Oh my god. I forgot about that.
He's so flippant. Like, cause like he said, he was just dating her to fill the hole that Sally left. Like, yeah. Sonic's a little messed up. And he understands that.
And I feel like that also might have been Flynn trying to go like, okay, so the last guy kind of wrote Sonic like an asshole, so I have to like give him this arc where I break him down and kind of like humble him before I can build him back up into the Sonic we all know and love.
Which is great because most people would have just fixed it. You'd just been like, he's different.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I think that is, train of thought, come back. But like the thing I think is interesting is that like the line from Tails is so great. He goes like, "You're supposed to be my brother, but everything I care about you take away from me." And it's like, yeah, it's like you can tell it's like Fiona was like this thing where it's like Tails is a smart kid. He probably never believed anything would actually happen, but it gave him hope.
Yeah. And then like you said, like the thing of like everything you take away from me, like they're literally in the context of Sonic being okay with his family being in jail.
Yeah.
Because also, he's like, well, so like it's not just the girl thing, you know, but that was the tipping point where he realized like, does Sonic like not like me? Like, why would he do this? You know?
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's funny. I was looking through that, and the moment when Amadeus is leading that charge on the Capitol, I was like, oh, this is a little too relevant.
Right.
But so yeah, that, you know, House of Cards is great. Eggman Empire. I feel like there was another point about Eggman Empire I was gonna say, but
I love it's a small moment, but I love that there's all these low-key moments for different characters, and in that arc, it's Mighty. Like, if Mighty didn't destroy Snively, like, they all would have lost. Because Mighty ripping off Snively's arm and then destroying his mech is the only reason that Tails, Amy, and Knuckles survive.
Yeah, because he only
birthday, so Ian Flynn had to force himself to convolute a reason that we're going through Sonic 1 and 2. So
yes, but I will say that arc is still great though.
But that's the thing; it's one of my favorites because here's what I love about it. So, and Ian Flynn has gone on record saying that he if he could remove this arc, he would because he doesn't like it because it was forced upon him.
You know what's funny?
Yeah.
What's funny is I actually skipped that arc when I first read through, so
so
I guess he got his wish with me at least.
Yeah. But what I love so much about it is that, so of course, at this point, Sonic and Sally have gotten back together, right? And here's the thing. I think that without this arc, the Sally turning into a robot thing feels really cynical. Full date. But they get this nice little moment on the side. Then immediately, Ixis Naga shows up. Eggman shows up. She turns into a robot. Oh, isn't it tragic that just when they got back together, they're thrown apart again? To me, I feel like that would feel really cynical. Like it just wouldn't feel right because it would feel like, oh, we got them back together so we could rip your heart out, right? After you've waited years and years. This is where the Genesis arc totally saves it, and it's one of the cutest, sweetest one, because the whole point of it is it's this comic book nonsense of like the world has been reset, but because our love and our friendship with the freedom fighters and Sally is so strong, it transcends time and space, and they are able to basically naturally connect with everybody. When they think Antoine dies, they're like, no, this doesn't feel right. Antoine's supposed to be with us. I know it. And they're able to push on through this very simple story, and Sonic and Sally just get to like each other for normal reasons. People like each other. They think each other's funny. She's very kind to him. She helps him jump into the water and keep him safe. He saves them all the time. They have their funny little banter from like Sad AM. And because we're in this like this little simple time of like the classic games, there's no Nagus, there's none of the baggage that we used to have, there's none of the infighting that we've ever had. We're all just friends, and we're all like, and Sonic and Sally are into each other. And it culminates in this beautiful moment where he resets the time and he writes, "Hi, Sal," on the wall. And Sally has remembered her memories, and he's like, see you. And then she goes, "On the other side, Sonic," as the world resets itself. And it's just this beautiful moment where he saves her, and their love transcends time and space to the point that when he resets the timeline, the "Hi, Sal" is now engraved into the screen, like the wall or whatever.
Yeah.
And she sees it. And it's like, that's beautiful. Like,
yeah, it's funny. You say about, them doing this without any of the baggage. Isn't there there's literally a moment where Sonic goes like, "Oh, this place looks like Robotropolis would be a good name." And then Rotor goes, "What about New Megaopolis?" And Sonic goes, "You're trying too hard, dude."
Yeah. Yeah, they're just having so much fun with it, like all these little references. But yeah, I'm like, why couldn't we have just ended on the date? So so thankfully this 4-parter ends on that cute moment. There is no like Eggman conniving in the corner or anything. It just ends with the purity of Sonic and Sally's relationship. And I love it for that. And it makes her sacrifice have so much more weight. It doesn't feel cynical or clinical. It feels like you actually got to have this nice little moment, like their extended date, basically. And it's just really nice, and I really love it. So that's one of the ones I really care about.
That is one thing I will say. Sonic Genesis, I will say one of my favorite pieces of Sonic merchandise that I own is I actually own the Sonic Genesis hardcover that has like the story, awesome. And it has like some concept art in the back. And one thing I will say, you talk about the cynical like endings. Well, before I get to that, real quick, I will say I do love this art just because it is just pure undistilled. Like, it's just a fun Sonic adventure. And honestly, I feel like it's kind of the perfect pitch for a Sonic movie. Like, yeah, he frees and then they just go on an adventure. Like, they just go, and then it culminates in the Death Egg, and then he, beats them, and he saves the world. Obviously, you'd have to tweak a few things because it's about the universe being rewritten and all that. But like, overall, one thing I hate about this hardcover is that it ends with the quote-unquote Sonic Genesis epilogue, which is the issue where Sally gets turned into Mecha Sally, which is like, you were so close, like, and Grant, I wonder, one thing I want to ask real quick, because I know mine. What is one thing that you don't like about specifically Flynn's era of the Archie comics? Because people who have seen my Valentine's special probably know mine, but I want to know yours.
So for me, I would say his weakest stuff was probably either early on when he was table setting, which I'm not going to hold against him too much. Like, I wouldn't say it feels like a cop out. It's like, oh, your early stuff. So for me, it was probably, I don't know. I think it would have to be the integration of Jeffrey St. John, where he just like freaking comes in out of nowhere from like all this time, and he just like 1v5s the freedom fighters and makes them all look like chumps for like an extended period of time. And I also just feel like with the politics arc in general, it felt like it was a little too ambitious for what it was going for. So there were parts where like things would get resolved off screen. Like, for example, Mina realizing that this isn't what she wanted. We don't get to like see a moment where she comes to that realization. And so therefore we just cut to her going to apologize to Nicole, or something like you have Nagus come in and fight the Death Egg, and they're like, oh my gosh, he's our king, he's the greatest. But then literally like in the Sonic Universe story, the Battle Bird Armada shows up, and then he gets like destroyed, and their city gets like more damaged than it was against Eggman. And for some reason, nobody's like, you know what? I don't think Nagus is a good choice. He kind of didn't do anything there. Like, they never mention it. Like,
yeah.
And so and it's not like, because I actually really love that arc, but it's just that's where his weaker, like that stuff being poor hurts more because it's in the middle of something really great, and it's like, oh, you could have like perfected this, you know. So that's why it's the most frustrating for me. Like, I think there's like a few, like maybe there's like a Sonic universe or two that I'm just like, it was whatever. But that's where it like hurt me the most, where I'm just like, dang it, like it could have been like the best one. But yeah, these old niggles.
Yeah.
So that's my negative, I would say.
Yeah, for me, my negative, I feel like almost isn't fair because I'm looking at it through the lens of Flynn having a finite amount of time to tell the pre-Genesis Archie story, which he didn't think he had. Like, he thought he had, like, he did. I genuinely wonder. We're going to talk about this a bit later if we have the time. I genuinely wonder when he got the news of like, hey, Penders is on our ass. Like, you gotta wrap this up. Because those last few issues do very much feel like very like, okay, so Silver blasts Sally, and then the reboot happens, but they got Sally, and you can assume that they would have brought her back and de-roboticized her, and everyone would have lived happily ever after. so you get to still live, you get to still have like your happy ending, right? Even though we're taking everything away from you after this cool Mega Man crossover, but
you can tell the moment they that it changed because it's the issue where they first start the Knuckles 4-parter. Like whenever he loses his kind, because you can, and the reason you can tell is because there are certain, in the speech bubbles, there's like the normal person who penned the dialogue. And then anytime they have to mention like any pre-boot character, like Elias, they just like, you can see a completely different person wrote there, the king. Like in a different, in different handwriting, like completely different handwriting.
You are completely right.
And then there's a bunch of other, lines that are completely rewritten in that person's handwriting. So, like, this was like a rush job.
Yeah. Well, and so, basically, this is my long-winded way of saying, because, like, my disgust towards Mecha Sally being at the end of Sonic Genesis, it would not probably be there if the Archie comics had kept going, because it would have just been like, oh, this was the period when Sally became a robot, but she got turned out, and, she stopped being a robot, and then her and Sonic got to go and have more adventures together. It's that you wasted your last, like, 30 issues of this, universe that I love, having Sonic's, like, partner and all of it be a robot. Like, that's why, like, just the image of Mecha Sally, like, still irks me. But
yeah,
I will say, even with that, I think the Monkey Khan love triangle was a massive mistake.
Oh, really? Okay, go ahead.
I think they were setting it up perfectly for her and Sonic to just get back together at, after issue. I think issue 200 would have been perfect. We beat Eggman, we have this new threat on the horizon, but you know what, we're facing it together, and we've finally realized, like, you know what, and I think there's literally a moment in issue, I want to say 220, 221, where Sonic goes, if we had just talked to each other, we probably could have gotten back together a lot quicker, like, or something like that. And
yeah.
And I think it's like, I mean, this is why I threw this in my Valentine's video, it's just like, the will they won't they was just painful, and it only existed to stretch out, because, like, she's not going to go with Monkey Khan. Like, she's going to end up back together with Sonic. So it's not like there's any real drama there. So it's just like, that's why I don't know if I said this, like, but I kind of like groaned when you mentioned Monkey Khan, your favorite arc-ish thing, because I was like,
oh yeah, I know.
But again, it's like, would I still think that if the universe hadn't rebooted, or am I just going like, Flynn, you're wasting time, just let them be together because you only have this many issues left? Like, yeah. I'm not completely sure. I
mean, you can just feel how you want to feel. It's just the fact that you understand of like, it's if I'm going to write a review, it's like, you got to consider the factors he was working with. Like, that's more than some people will give him. Some people.
Yeah. Well,
so,
and that's,
yeah, go for it.
Is the amount of stories you can tell about, like, oh, there's a love triangle, or oh, they're apart, but like, oh, maybe they'll end up with these other people. At the same time, it's like, can you just please let them be together? Like, just for the love of God.
Yeah, I mean, I always say that romantic relationships are just like any dynamic in a series. Like, you would never want like for example, in something like I don't know, My Hero, because that's the thing that I watch. How far are you into that?
Uraraka and Bakugo are about to fight.
All right, this is fine then. So, like, if for example, like how there's like a, not even a spoiler, so it'll be fine. So, like, like Ida, he wants to like at the start of the series, he's like, I don't like Deku, he's annoying and loud. But then once he sees how brave he is, he's like, oh, I respect you. Let's say that for the rest of the series, their dynamic was just, I don't know if I like that kid, but maybe I will. Like
Yeah.
that would be annoying, and that's for any dynamic. So like that's why I never give any like writers a pass for being like, well, what are you gonna do if they get together? It's like, just write a positive, healthy relationship.
And maybe it's because, again, I think, I consider this, and I think a lot of people probably would share this opinion. I think Sonic and Sally's relationship really is the heart of the book. And they were like, well, what if we have them get together and then the book just becomes boring? Like, then just don't do that. Like, still have them, like, write well then. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. And I think that's almost where, like, all at once when I, read it years later, it still feels cynical to me, in my personal opinion. Like, it still feels like, oh, yep, we just got them together. We have, like, almost 100 issues of, after she slaps him and, of them, like, getting back together. And then, oh, she's a robot. Like,
oh yeah, I mean, it's still obviously cynical because that's what he intended to do. I'm just saying that Sega for once threw him off and it worked out for me.
Yeah. And what I think is and I think it's interesting that, like, I feel like, and granted, it might have been a bit difficult to get them back together, like, right at 200 because Sonic was still reeling from the guilt of having broken Eggman's mind. But
yeah.
So maybe he wouldn't have been like, oh, also Sally, like, I love you or something. But I don't know, maybe you could have, like, her comfort him, be like, hey, it's not your fault. He was a dick. Like, it's okay. I feel like you could have made that work. And then you have them actually be together and have, like, a positive, healthy relationship. So that way, when she gets ripped away from him, it hurts all the more. It's not just like, oh, we're together. No, she's gone. Like, I don't know. Again, I'm sure there are people who would be like, who would think that, it's just like, oh, you just like that couple, so you just wanted to see more of it. And it's like, I mean, yeah, like, I can admit that, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know.
There's nothing wrong with that. And also, like, it's not like Flynn can take this constructive criticism anyway. So, like, like the series of things.
If?
Oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead. No, go for it. Go for it. You're pitching an idea.
What if you actually have Sonic and Amy become a couple for a couple issues? And, like, Sonic, like, and at first Amy's ecstatic because she thinks she has everything she ever wanted. And Sonic's like, well, Sally's happy with this other guy. I guess I should just let this happen because, I still care about her, but I missed my opportunity, blah, 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 blah. And so Amy's ecstatic. And you can see Sonic, like, trying to be, like, a good, like, romantic partner to Amy. But his heart just isn't in it. And she can tell his heart isn't in it because he's trying too hard. It's not natural for him. And so eventually she goes to him. She's like, you don't love me. And, like, this isn't healthy. What you're doing is not healthy of just trying to, like, push your feelings away. Like, you just need to, like, be honest with Sally about how you feel. And then she breaks it off with him. So that way you have what I would feel is a more organic and natural, like, way of getting them back together. But also you have some progression for Amy. Now, I fully understand Sega very well may not have let him do that, because it's like, you're going to do a story about Amy moving on from Sonic? You mean her, like, one character trait? No. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I think that would have been interesting. I don't know. Oh,
yeah, no, and it's fun to think back on that. As far as, like, my thoughts on the Sally Monkey Con thing, what I appreciated for it was less of, like, what it was doing for the relationship between Sonic and, like, holding off Sonic and Sally getting back together. I really appreciated that Flynn took the time to, because, Sally, when we pick up the story, she's still reeling from all the stuff that happened during the slap, the Sonic coming back and almost dying, breaking up with them, being apart for so long. And I appreciate that he, like, gave her, like, so many different stages of rebuilding it, that while it did take a lot of time, it kind of, to me, like, fleshed her out to be one of the best characters in the comic, because we go from her basically wanting to just be around everybody again. Then we have her being like, no, I want to be back in the group permanently and be a leader. Then she's tried to work on her relationship with Sonic as a friend, to where you get to the end of 200 where, like, they can hug each other and like, they're back to basically where they were in Sad AM before they were dating at the end of that series. Then you have her going with Monkey Con because it's like, sure, I want to date Sonic, but what if I'm a problem again? And also, Monkey Con has a lot of similar traits, so I'll just try, I'll try dating or whatever. And I appreciate that because of that, she not only gets to explore that, but she builds up Monkey Con, gives him an arc to where he is now a fleshed out character who can live on his own and do his own stuff and be a leader, which is also a reflection of her arc and growing. He is also able to help her out in a way, and she realizes, no, I want that from Sonic. And then they get together. So while I definitely understand why it feels like, no, let's just get to that last part, I actually really like it because it feels very realistic, like, from someone suffering from, like, literally all the stuff she went through where Sonic looks like he was dead for a year, comes back and is like, I'm going to keep putting my life at risk. You break up with him. Now you're restrained from all your friends. That's very realistic. And of course, you don't come to comic books for realism, but like all the time, obviously. And, you know, it would just be nice to have them get together. But I really appreciate that aspect of it. So for me, I was never against the Monkey Con thing because I saw what it was doing for her specifically. But of course, if you're a fan of just Sonic and Sally together in general, then I could definitely see how it's a turnoff.
Well, for me, I feel like, and great, maybe it's because I haven't like read through it in a while. Like when I was skimming through issues, like I kind of just skipped over that because I was like, yeah, Iron Dominion, like yeah, whatever. But like I feel like you had, because she breaks up with him what, issue 134? So I feel like by 200, that's still several years, and like even prior to that, in like you know, you see in what's the arc, the casino arc where they're talking, you have a lot of time of them like having like these weird like awkward moments, like you see them like getting back to like, you know, being closer with one another. I feel like that was good. Maybe enough. I'm wrong. Like
that was like,
yeah, I feel like that was a long enough time. Like I feel like that, like yeah.
Oh, I totally understand. For me, it's just because I binged that section. It didn't feel like it was too long. It felt like, all right, this is the last piece. Now we're together. But I like, again, I totally understand. It's yeah, go ahead.
No, I think it's just because we're working with like this weird, like, because obviously if you're reading the comic at the time, you're just like, oh, you know, they're doing this love triangle stuff with Monkey Con, and then, you know, her and Sonic are together, and then she's but like if you're reading on it, knowing the context, like you have this weird ticking clock of like, okay, we have this many issues left until the Mega Man crossover. Can you please just get to the point? Like,
yeah, no, that's definitely a factor. Yeah, I personally don't have that problem, but I totally understand how that. I mean, obviously, even with just like the Mecha Sally arc in general, you could look back on some of the decisions he made. It's like, why are we stretching this out? Don't you know? It's like obviously he doesn't know, but it just makes it more frustrating. So. No, dude, that's totally fine. I wanted to give a little feedback on that, just simply because, I love Sally. I love her arc, but I could totally understand how that hurts the Sonic-Sally relationship and how that could be annoying. So, makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, well, so real quick, we have been talking for like an hour, so I feel like we should probably get into the characterization part, because we've spent this... Well, we've kind of been like jumping back and forth, but like... So, are there any particular characters who you think, like, especially compared to the games, were characterized, like, especially well in Archie?
Yeah, so we obviously talked about Sonic, and I think I said most everything I wanted to say about him, other than I really appreciate his like basically like his depression anger arc, which is once Sally gets taken away, there's all these little moments of him just like delving deeper and deeper into being like much darker. Like he literally gives a death threat. I don't know if you remember this, but in the Babylon Rogues Sonic Universe story, there's a part where he's like, he says, if I wasn't a hero, I would make sure you couldn't get off this falling ship. Now I'm going to head back to my friends. I'd like to stay here and make stuffing out of you turkeys, but I got to go make sure my friends are okay. And if any of them aren't okay, you'd better hope you can run faster than me. And then he leaves.
I never read that arc because I don't care much for the Babylon Rogues, but I have seen that scene. Didn't Tracy Yardley write that arc?
Oh yeah, he wrote that. But it's just one of those things where I think it's integral to the part where Sonic breaks completely. And you have that moment where he thinks back to like what Scourge said about like, if you had one bad day, you'd be just like me. And I don't think that's to mean that like, oh, Sonic is thinking I'm going to turn evil. But he's thinking like, is this my bad day? Like nothing's going right. And and remember, this is after like Antoine's been put into a coma. This is after Bunny has left. This is after like Sally's a robot, and this is after he tried to strangle Silver.
Yeah, oh my god, that Silver scene. And this is coming from someone who Silver is his favorite character. That Silver scene is maybe one of my favorite scenes in Sonic media, period.
Yeah, it just characterizes Sonic so well, like his grief.
Yeah, where Silver goes to him and he goes like, and Sonic's just so fed up with it because he's like, oh my god, you have tried to kill me and my friends how many times? Just go away. And Silver's like, no, I swear, I have it right this time. It's Antoine. And it's just like, the wrong thing at the wrong time.
You mean the guy in the coma? Yes.
So he grabs him by the quills, drags him to the hospital, and he throws him in the room. And then it's this great moment of Silver where you're like, Silver, you need to stop talking, because he goes like, oh, well, maybe Bunny's the traitor.
Yeah.
Maybe Bunny's the traitor. And Sonic's like, get out of here, like go home. And you could tell like it's weird because Silver is obviously like one of the most powerful characters in Sonic. Like, if he wasn't able to like put a literal like psychic wall between them, Sonic might have like messed him up a little bit.
Oh yeah, he was trying to. I mean, you could see by his hands, like he has like the "I'm gonna strangle you and pin you to the floor" face and yell at you. But yeah, so I think we've talked a lot about Sonic. I would definitely say that characters like Knuckles and Shadow are given a lot of love. They're given a lot of pathos to their tragedy of either being alone or wanting to live up to being like, for example, like the ultimate life form. Like Shadow wants to live up to that idea to the point where what I love about Shadow in the comic is that he's desperately trying to be the edgy Shadow that everybody thinks he is, but he's really just a sweetheart who wants to do his best to keep the promise to that little girl that he misses all this time, Maria. And so and it especially culminates, I think, in the Treasure Team Tango arc, where he's like trying to convince himself, like, no, the world of, Blaze's world is worth a sacrifice if it's to protect this world, because that's what Maria wanted. And Amy's like, well, why wouldn't you want to protect all worlds? And it's like, yeah, you're right. I do. I'm a big softie. And but it's just great. And I just love Shadow for that. I love Knuckles, that they explore his depression and his like fear of not being able to protect his family. I love that when he's Enerjack, they address the fact that, like, it's not that he's fully brainwashed. All the things he does are things that Knuckles does believe in or would want. Like, he wasn't intending to harm his friends. He was coming there to help them. Or he wasn't intending to he was always intending to punish Eggman, so he goes and does that. But he's just a bit warped. And I just love that aspect of it. So, like, when he feels guilty afterwards, it's not just like, well, Knuckles, like, what were you going to do? It's like, no, like, those aspects of himself were still a little bit him. And the way he struggles with that and comes to terms with it and gets his nice cathartic beat down on Finetibus is just great. Like, where he breaks down, it's like, what do you want? He's like, what do I want? I want my father back, And it's just great. And it's all the characters are given just so much heart. So that's kind of my general thoughts on it.
Well, it's interesting you talk about, like, with especially with Sonic and Shadow, I feel like, because those are the two that, less so Sonic for, a lot of people, that's mainly just, I think, an issue that you and I have and, like, some other people. But with Shadow, I think that's a big talking point in the community. And I think the problem that that has plagued these characters for the last little bit now is that Ian Flynn is trying to tell 2000s style stories, but he's stuck using the 2010 style characters, and those two things don't mesh well together. I think, like, for instance, we talked about how Sonic probably doesn't really believe a lot of the stuff he says about, like, oh man, no, I'm super cool. Like, no, he puts that up as a front because he needs to, like, be brave. I think did you ever watch Ben 10 when you were younger?
Oh yeah.
There's a great. Did you ever get to Ultimate Alien? You're a bit older than me, so maybe you were too old for it at that point.
I watched a little bit of it, but I don't remember it as, like, fondly or too many scenes from it.
There's a great scene where Ben is in this place where, like, time is warped or whatever, and he meets his 10-year-old self from the classic series.
I have seen that scene. Yeah.
Yeah, and Ben goes, like, I have to treat everything like it's a big joke, because if I treat it actually like as seriously as it is, I'll be too scared and I won't be able to act like, the way I need to. And, like, that's basically the perfect way to describe, like, the way Sonic is, or at least the way I always saw Sonic. It's like, yeah, I'm sure some of the stuff he does is, like, again, him buying his own hype. For the most part, it's just him putting on this facade so that way he can do what he needs to do instead of being paralyzed by, like, oh man, this is really serious, guys. And same with Shadow. Shadow is obviously, he's a darker character. He has all this tragedy, and he has, he's very clearly, like, more serious and more, I guess, edgy, even though I hate to use that word, than Sonic. But, like, he has this moment where it's like, we talked about it. The I really like that bike moment from Treasure Team Tango.
Yeah.
He's edgy and he's damaged, but he's still, like, a dude. Like, he still has, like, hopes and dreams, and he's, like, can form relationships with people. He's not just this, like, archetype. And I think the problem
he's also like kind of petty too. Like when he accidentally teleports into the Scourge fight, and he's like, "Why does he have a crown? He took over his planet. Want to help me beat him up? Sure."
Yeah. Oh my god, that scene is great. But the problem is, if I may draw a comparison, basically the problem is, Sega looks at these character traits that, Sonic and Shadow and, mostly them, I guess some other characters, put on as fronts and go, oh, so those are the characters, right? It would be the equivalent of, like Spider-Man, for example, how, Spider-Man makes all these quips and, he makes fun of his villains. And Sega would look at that and go, oh, so he's just an asshole then. I got it. And it's like, well, no, he's like a hero and he's kind of actually like this shy, nerdy guy, but he does this and it's kind of like a performative thing that he does. And at this point, Sega are already tuning out. Like,
yeah. How can we put a gun on it?
Yeah. So I kind of droned on there for a bit, but yeah, just that's my thoughts on the whole Sonic and Shadow thing. Another character, obviously I bring this up, Silver. I think the Archie comics did a lot of good for Silver during that time because, I mean, obviously after 06, the only game where Silver really had like a heavy hand in the story were like the Rivals games. And even then, that's like, I doubt very many people played those, first of all. And second of all, they're like smaller spin-off games. So I think that those comics really did a lot of good for him in terms of, fleshing out his character. And what I think is interesting is that Ian Flynn chose to not do direct game adaptations. He took things from the games like Silver, and then he was like, well, let me do my own thing with it. So, although I think he's gone on record and saying, like, why would I do an 06 story arc when it just erases itself at the end? I feel like I remember him saying that, but I can't remember where I heard it.
Right.
Train of thought, come back. So I think that's really interesting. Because, like, you see Silver, and he's super powerful. Like, his first appearance, he freezes, like, Sonic, Scourge, Shadow, Metal Sonic, like, with a thought. Like, he is immeasurably powerful. Like, he's able to freeze Super Scourge for a second. But the problem is he doesn't know how to use this massive amount of power he has. So that's where the conflict comes in. He has to train. You have characters like Edmund Edmund's just the best, quite frankly. I mean, he's basically the Sonic universe's equivalent of like Yoda.
Right.
And like the Silver Saga. I always get Silver Saga and Silver Age mixed up, but Silver Saga, that's all about him like having to learn how to properly use his power. Because up until that point, he's just like, well, if I just hit it hard enough with my mind, it should fall down. And it's like, no, he has to learn how to actually properly use it, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, well, and I also love that the naivety of his character is played into an endearing degree, because the threat of his world falling apart feels more real because of just like the way the art is portrayed. Like I told you about it, where he's thinking like, is it really, fair for me to go back and kill someone who hasn't done anything? And then he stops and he looks at, it's just this silent page of like looking at the destroyed city, and he just goes, no. And then he tosses the book, and then he goes, Chronos Control. And in that one moment, you get it. Like, you get everything about Silver without him having to be like, I hate this future, everyone's dead, blah, blah, blah. Like, just by the imagery, you get it. So whenever he's coming back, and he's like, please, just let this guy be the traitor. I just need to kill somebody. like
I just need to kill someone.
Please. You feel for him. And I just love that it comes all the way back around where, like you said, he learns to use his power more effectively. But it culminates with him like wanting to talk to Jeffrey, where he's like, they're like, we should gang up on Jeffrey and beat the information out of him. He's like, I don't know, why don't we just like talk to him? And he's like, I know what it feels like to put your all into something because you feel it's what's right, but then getting stuck on it. And he's like, what if we just talk to the guy? And by doing that, he has basically completed his arc of like where he started of being this like overly aggressive and like not thinking of the consequences, to using that to reach out to someone and getting all the information they need to save the day. And even though we know he, like you said, unfortunately we don't get to see it, but we can assume he saved his future because he stopped Sally, blah, blah, blah. I love that he still gets to save someone else's future.
Yeah. Well, what sucks about it is, well, first of all, you're absolutely right. Like the idea of like, this whole time Silver thinks like, I need to kill someone in order to save the future. It's like, no, I need to save Sally in order to save the future. Is really, really good. But also, just that's like, there's something like tragically comedic about the idea of like, it's the same page. Like Silver blasts her, he incapacitates her. He's like, yes, I saved the future. Genesis Wave.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that in IDW, it did feel like an apology for that, where like he does save the future. It's not like, oh, you don't understand. The Zombots weren't the real thing that destroyed my timeline. It's something even more dangerous. And it's like, oh my gosh. Like they actually show him go back to his future. He got a happy ending, the end. I'm like, all right, cool.
Well, except not even really the end, because you know they're gonna bring him back again. So like,
Oh,
why
of
do you?
course, of course. I just
don't
hope
get.
it's not because the future's destroyed.
Well, yeah, but my thing is like, I don't get why you don't just like. I've said this in my videos before. Just have Silver be stranded in the past. Like he probably likes. That's where all his friends are anyway. Like he probably wouldn't mind it. Just have a plot thing of like, oh no, I can't travel back to the future because blah blah blah. I guess I'll just stay here. Because then you don't have to keep contriving. Then in Team Sonic Racing, he doesn't have to go. Oh, you know, Donpa sent me an invitation all the way to the future. Like no, just stop. Like,
Yeah, of course.
but yeah. I will say, you brought up Chronos Control. How did that never get implemented into like the games? Like that, because again, we have all these instances of like Silver's back in the past somehow. Like just
make Control. Just make up a new time travel thingy.
Yeah, and also it just sounds cool. If I'm being completely honest.
Oh yeah, no, it sounds awesome. And I like that he uses the time stones, all that stuff. There's just not to go too off tangent, but I really love the little. It's like a B plot where Knuckles, Sonic, and Tails are protecting this Chow Garden, and Eggman shows up because he senses like the power of the energy or whatever, and he's like, oh, surely there's gonna be something really crazy here, and it's like, oh, it's just Chow, and Sonic, and he goes, sure, you know, are there rings? And Sonic's like, no, and he's like, Chaos Emeralds, no, time stones, and he goes, didn't you invent those? And then he's like, I'll just settle for wanton destruction.
Yeah. Yeah, that, oh man. Again, the characterization is just so good. And the problem is, I feel like, you know, and you see this word get thrown around a lot in regards to the Archie's comics. It's like, oh, it's too fan fiction-y. It's like, you mean the characters act like people and have like hopes and dreams and they fall in love and get sad? Like,
yeah, that's just yeah, if anyone says that, it's really hard to take them seriously unless they clarify what they mean. Because again, fan fiction is still fiction. It's not lesser. Like that's a brain blast.
Well, I remember I saw a thing on Twitter not too long ago. I actually commented on it of someone defending Sega's mandates, where it was basically like, all it says is to not write off-brand fan fiction of our characters. But like the problem is, what you consider to be off-brand for Sonic and what I consider to be off-brand for Sonic are probably radically different because this stupid character has gone through so many different iterations.
Yeah.
Like for me, again, what we're doing right now is off-brand because like I'm used to like, you know, the Archie stuff and the SatAM stuff where, you know, you get to see a little more like character and depth from these characters, whereas now they're board cutouts. Like,
yeah, it's a shame because it doesn't even, you know, a lot of it doesn't even need to be arcs. Like I think that just giving the characters they can have their base personalities or archetypes, but just being able to see these characters go through different ranges of emotions allows them to feel more like people. You know, and just like the little things like, yeah, like he, you know, Shadow loves his bike, or just like seeing Sonic and Tails play like Capture the Flag or something like that. A lot of that stuff goes really far to humanize these characters and take them beyond what we see. So, and I think overall that's something you can apply to the entire cast.
Yeah.
So yeah. Did you want to talk about the villains, or did you have any other characters?
I mean, I feel like I've said a lot about Sally. I mean, I have a whole video about, you know, how I think she should be in the game, so I don't really know.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
she's wonderful.
Yeah. Villains. I mean, who would you say? Put it this way: if you could have one Archie villain in the games, who would it be?
It would have to be. Gosh, because I think they're all cool. Which is crazy that Sonic has a rogues gallery. Like that's not a thing in anywhere else.
Absolutely.
Except for like I think Fleetway. But yeah, it's either I'm gonna have to go with Mammoth Mogul, I think, because I really like the idea of one having a magic user, and two, I just think his shtick of like using all these big words to talk down to Sonic, who is just like, you know, being a little twerp and like not having it. I think that's a funny dynamic. But two, I like the idea that he gets more power from the Chaos Emeralds like directly. So like I think like if you were in a game, you could have this whole thing of like depending on how many chaos, like he's like Chaos basically, where the more Chaos Emeralds he gets, the different powers and forms he can take on. And so the idea that once he gets all of them, he becomes like Master Mogul and he's like a demigod or whatever. So he has something to fight against Sonic. I just think that would be more fun than, you know, another monster for Eggman to shove the Chaos Emeralds into. Mm-hmm. And I just think his personality is really fun. I love that. because he's a joke villain beforehand, like not in terms of like he's supposed to be taken funny, like he's not a comedy villain, but like the old writers really didn't give him a lot. Like he says in the Ian Flynn era, he became a god twice, and both times he somehow lost to Sonic.
Yeah.
Like, so, but I love that the way Flynn does it. He's just like, you know what, screw it, because again, writing godlike characters, yeah, that is really hard, right? So what he decides to do is he just decides to go head in on the petty side of it. So Mammoth Mogul makes it to where he makes it so all of Sonic's friends, Mina, Mighty, and Tails, all of them are like sent in different directions, and all of them are out of Sonic's reach, and he could only save like one probably. And it's like, I will kill all your friends. I'll have Mina drown herself, I'll have Tails fly into space, and I'll have Mighty walk into the Eggman Empire unarmed and not fight back. Or you could just let me leave. And Sonic's like, Nicole, where's the Chaos Emerald? because he has no choice. And I love that he basically figures out in the most like non-meta way possible that you could do it, that Sonic is the main character, because he goes, I have you in my clutches right now, but I am sure that if I tried to kill you, fate would conspire against me and something would happen. So I'm cutting my losses and I'm going to go start a casino. Goodbye.
And you know what's super interesting about that scene is that I remember, I mean, I did a whole Sonic theory about it, which is the most viewed video on my channel somehow. But like, where I was like, oh, well, you know, Sonic has this chaos factor, which is never said in the book, but I know I've seen it referred to as the chaos factor somewhere.
Eggman mentions it. He says he's the embodiment of chaos, and then he mentions a chaos factor.
Oh, okay, yeah. But so, but like, here's the genius of Ian Flynn. I thought that was just a thing he came up with. No, that's from like super early Archie days. Like apparently it was like,
oh really?
Apparently they were like he collects like enough rings. Then like
the billionth ring. Yeah,
the billionth ring, and then like the ancient walkers or someone shows up and they're like, hey, so you can't lose ever now. Okay, bye. Like
yeah, and then Ken Penders philosophizes at you, and then like that's all that issue is. I remember it.
yeah, good old Ken Penders. But so yeah, your answer is Mammoth Mogul.
Mammoth Mogul, and I wanted to say Scourge, but I have to go with Mammoth Mogul just because we already have enough like not evil Sonics. Like Shadow's not an evil Sonic, but like you have your Silvers, your Shadows, your Hedgehog counterparts who are who can like serve as that function if they needed to, or Metal Sonic. So I was like, I'll go with Mammoth Mogul because I think he's unique enough, and I think that he could legit serve as a threat. So he's my pick.
Yeah. Also, like everyone says Scourge, so
because he's amazing.
I mean, he is great. He is great.
He's so funny. But yeah, what's your pick?
You know, I was gonna say Dark Enerjack because 1, awesome design.
Oh, so good.
2, you know, awesome story arc. But like, then I thought a bit more about it, and I'm gonna say King Shadow.
Ooh,
because I think something I would have loved to have seen in Archie, and I don't know if they ever would have done it. I would have loved to have seen Shadow, especially Archie's version of Shadow, who's more heroic and he's more down to earth, meet King Shadow. Because King Shadow is basically like, if Shadow didn't like get his shit together, like if he didn't learn his lesson, it's like, well, I guess the only way to save the world is to conquer it. So I think seeing, I mean, I don't know if it would be great as like, maybe if you did like, I don't know, Shadow the Hedgehog 2, because it would have to definitely be like a very Shadow-centric story where you have him. But
yeah,
like,
just make it like a Sonic Universe arc where it's like 35 years later, you know, and then evil Shadow comes back.
Yeah, so like seeing like Shadow meet his evil future self and have to, you know, grapple with like, am I destined to become that, or do you make your own fate, or blah,
it's kind of like
blah.
It would be a way to have the Sonic 06 arc in the comic.
Yeah. I think that would be that. I think seeing King Shadow show up again in some shape or form would be super interesting. But yeah, also Dark Enerjack is really cool.
Dark Enerjack. I think Enerjack in general is great because the Enerjack fight with when he's Knuckles in the main timeline is my favorite usage of Supersonic ever, because what it is it's not like he could have gone the easy route of like, oh, just have two like big super forms fight each other and that's how we win. But Sonic's plan is to turn Supersonic so Knuckles can't kill him and he can annoy the Knuckles out of him.
Yeah. More or less.
Yeah,
And
because he's like giving him noogies, taking away his staff. He's like, "Come on, Knuckles, come at me, bro. Why aren't you're not going Super Knuckles? Are you afraid of being pink?" And like as soon as like Knuckles goes like, "Oh, would you prefer if it were crunch time?" Which is like one of his dumb cheesy phrases from back in the old days. But Sonic's like, "Yeah, that's more like it." Like he's purposefully going supersonic so he can not die and annoy the Knuckles out, and it works for the most part. He just needed the little extra push from the dad, which even if Sonic wouldn't fully have been able to do it, he bought the dad time to do it. So
yeah, he bought the dad time to sacrifice his life to the Master Emerald. But so one thing I think is interesting about that is that, well, first of all, I say Dark Enerjack only because I think he has a cooler design. But is that there's an interesting tidbit in because I was looking at that issue earlier, and Sonic says his plan's like, well, I used this on Perfect Chaos to get the evil out of him, so surely I could do it on you too.
I'm gonna beat the evil out of you. I love it.
yeah, it's a great line. But what I think is funny, going back to pre-Flynn stuff for a second, in the Sonic Adventure adaptation, what I think is interesting about the final boss fight of Sonic Adventure is that Sonic's trying to stop Chaos, but in a way he's also like trying to save him from himself and from all this like evil he's absorbed throughout the years from like Eggman and the Knuckles guy whose name starts with P, who I can never pronounce. Like like he's taking all this stuff and essentially Sonic's trying to like lift all this off of him. And again, he's trying to defeat Chaos, but he's also trying to like save him in a way. Like he also views Chaos as a victim. But in Archie, I think the line is legit something like, if it's either my dead carcass or yours, like you're going dead, like something like that. It's like, I think you missed the point there, Benders.
Yeah.
Or whoever wrote Bowlers, whoever
something
wrote that
crazy.
Issue. Yeah.
No, yeah. Enerjack's great. I like Ixis Naugus. I think he's fun. I like the emotion manipulating powers. I like that all the villains have different names for Sonic. Like that's a very Batman thing, or at least I know it from Batman, where like Ra's al Ghul call him Detective, or like the Bat, all these things. But I love that. So Ixis Naugus calls him the Quickster, which is really cool. Mammoth Mogul calls him Boy. Eggman calls him Rodent. Scourge calls him Blue, and I just really like that. I think that's fun, and it gives a lot of personality to all the characters.
Yeah. I think, man, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't know. The villains are interesting because again, like it is one of those unfortunate things that was also lost during the Genesis wave, but yeah, I don't know. I lost my train of thought anyway.
No problem. Yeah, but yeah, I really love that aspect of the comic, and it's something to where like going into it, I never would have thought like you could have had another villain besides Eggman, which we covered him a little bit, but just to go into like just how great he is in the comic, like regardless of the fact that he's like so despicable and evil, like his plan is to roboticize the world because he knows that Sonic's home will blow up because if you roboticize anything robotic, it explodes. So his plan is literally to nuke the planet, and then anything that's left over, everyone else will be robots, right? Because they'll be roboticized, and then the whole planet will just be a wasteland full of his robots, and that includes killing all the people who work for him because they have robotic technology added to them. And he's like, what do you what they say, you have to break a few eggs you have to break a few dark egg legionnaires to make an omelet.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh.
And that leads to that one thing I love in this comic is you have multiple instances of characters almost swearing and then they get cut off.
And sometimes they do swear, which is funny because Scourge swears once.
Yeah,
it's like it's like the exclamation mark money sign, the
normal comic stuff. But like,
but it's funny that they're allowed to do that sometimes.
Yeah, like the instance in that scene is like Sonic, the line is something to the effect of like, "I never should have shown you a shred of mercy, you sick," and then he gets cut off.
Yeah, and then he's like, "Language rodent."
Yeah, and then doesn't Julie Sue almost call Rouge the B word at some point?
Oh yeah, she does. Yeah, that's early on too. And then she goes, "Bat." That's what you meant to say.
Yeah. Yeah, that is.
But what I love is that Eggman, when it's not against Sonic, and it makes sense in universe too, because Sonic is this chaos factor, or like just the fact that Sonic is so good, like he can't beat Sonic, but he realizes kind of the same thing Mammoth Mogul does, is like, oh, your friends don't have plot armor, and I'm going to exploit that. So he shoots Sally point blank in the face with a gun, and then turns her into a robot. He blows up Antoine, and then he gets a whole arc dedicated to just going around the world terrorizing people. Locks Snively up in a freaking like capsule, and presumably just leaves him there forever because we never see him again. And he says like game over Snively, and I love this. He says like game over Snively, and then there's this panel where he doesn't say anything and he just looks at the pod almost like he's reflecting on all the good times he had torturing Snively, and then he just goes thanks for playing, and then he leaves, and that's the last time we ever see Snively. There we are. Are you back?
Yeah, yes, I am.
Did you hear all the stuff I said?
Yes, I heard all the stuff you said. Just I jostled the mic for a second, and then I was like, oh no, like
no problem. But yeah, like
okay.
just, I love that. I love that about Eggman, that he's allowed to not only have little victories, but he's so terrifying because he actually owns most of the world. Like, you know, the Sonic Forces thing of like 99% of the world. You don't feel that just because a city's being burned down. But you know when you feel that when you meet Bunny's uncle, who has no choice but to work for Eggman because they were stranded in the desert and they needed help. You feel it whenever you go to the Down Under freedom fighters and one of their guys have to work for him because they couldn't do anything about it. You feel for him when you meet the Legion, the Echidnas, and they were sold out because of Dimitri and Leondad's greed, and they have bombs placed in their heads. That's Eggman, famously says, oh, if any of your Echidna buddies cross me, they'll go up like fireworks. Very festive, very colorful.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing I think that is really interesting is that, again, I said this before, a lot of writers have this problem with striking the balance between making Eggman menacing and making him like funny, I guess. And I think Archie really does it well, because like you have those scenes like the one you're talking about with the Chow Garden, but then you also have scenes of you have the scenes of him doing like the evil stuff, like the threatening to blow up people's heads, and I think that's a problem that a lot of writers have with him nowadays, is that the problem isn't Eggman. The problem is Sonic. Like, Eggman is like this cruel, efficient, like genius. It's just Sonic has, as you said, plot armor. Like, Sonic will always be one step ahead. Whereas in even the IDW comics, which I did kind of appreciate this about the IDW comics, where they talked about him being a little more self-sabotaging, but even then it kind of missed the point. It's like,
yeah,
Eggman is not a joke villain. It's just he is put up against, like, he's constantly stuck in a fight he can't win.
Well, he's up against, like, with a 300 IQ and you can come up with every plan. What do you do against someone who can react to all of your meticulous plans in the second it starts? And now your whole factor's out of whack, your experiment.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because like that literally breaks his mind of being like, I'm a genius. I can think of all these things, and I can't beat this stupid hedgehog.
Yeah, and I love that he cries when it first happens. Like, not whenever he rips off his mustache. There's a part where he's like, his mech's getting destroyed, and he goes, I hate that hedgehog. And when he says hedgehog, it's like this great shot of like the reflection of the screen, and you see him crying, and it's like, what is going on in this man's head? Like, that he is so like helpless against Sonic that he's crying. Like,
Well, it's this tragic moment, because it's like, it should be no different than like any other time Sonic beats one of his like robots, when he's fighting the big spider thing. But you got like you almost feel bad, but not almost, you too kind of feel bad for him, like in that scene of just like his robot's getting torn apart, and he's just helpless, and he's just essentially just watching as Sonic beats him. And like it's so good. Although,
yeah, I know, it's so good. Yeah.
One funny thing I will say about Eggman, though, is that they essentially just start treating him like he's the actual Robotnik. Like, I remember there was a point after Hedgehog Havoc where Sonic goes to turn Scourge into the Zone Cops, and then he goes like, look, my Robotnik is dead. This guy's from another world. Can you please just like deal with him? And it's like, oh yeah, he's not again, because they don't address it. Like, they essentially just treat him. In fact, there are lines of dialogue. There in issue 200, there's a line, I think, to the effect of, he goes like, you took over the world when I was like 5, and it's like, no, different guy. Like,
right. Well, I think what the Zone Cop guy says is that basically everything that happened on your side happened there, except he just won at the issue 50 fight. So like everything you could lob at your Robotnik, you could lob at this guy. And yeah, it's just a way of like hand waving the fact that like this is like a Robo Robotnik from an alternate dimension who nuked his planet and turned into got into a satellite, like all this crazy comic stuff. It's like he's Eggman, whatever.
Yeah. That is. What did they specifically say? It was the issue 50 fight, or was it?
Yeah, he says like the world robot, like the ultimate annihilator or the roboticizer or whatever. Like it didn't, like he roboticized himself or something, and it kept him alive, something like that.
Okay.
Like around that era, I think is what they say, because that's why the Zone Cop guys, like they're basically identical. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think that's funny because it's like, well, because and I understand it from the point of like being like a new reader, being like, wait, he's a different guy. But
yeah,
he's
a
like,
robot.
No, it's just, he's the same guy, just the same guy. Also, real quick, because I know you got to get going soon. I think we should just touch on a little bit the reboot.
Yeah, go
Specifically, I want to talk about the Penders lawsuit because, as I told you before, I think I have a bit of a controversial take on it.
Okay.
If everyone's ready for it, I think Penders was in the right.
Okay.
Now, let's. I'm sure everyone who's listening to this is probably like, what? Because everyone loves to throw Penders on the bus. And Grant, I think Penders is a weird guy. Like, if you look at his Twitter, he says, like, sometimes Mobians eat their young. Or, no. Like, that's weird. Like, but, like, get mad at him for that stuff. Because my thing is, if you look at what actually happened, he approaches Sega or Archie or whatever, and he's like, hey, you've been using my characters that I created. Like, I spent years of my life working for this company. Where's my cut? And they go, what do you mean your cut? Like, those characters belong to us. And he goes, oh, really? Show me the contract I signed where it said that those characters were yours.
And they couldn't find it.
And so either they lost it, or they never had him sign it. Which
is ridiculous.
Well, I mean, apparently they also lost the source code to Sonic Unleashed. So, I mean, take from that what you will. But so, it's like, am I glad Penders did it? Of course not. But, like, he's also human. Like, you can go like, oh, well, he screwed over us fans. It's like, okay. But he also wanted to get paid for for all the work he did. And he didn't want these people to keep using all these things. And then you look at it, and it's like, okay, Archie and Sega, you multi-million-dollar companies, like, he couldn't have been asking for that much money. Like, there's no way. And royalties for comic books are not an unheard of thing. Like, plenty of companies like Marvel and DC pay creators royalties for if they use characters they create. I think, if I may use an analogy, because I thought of this analogy before. Yeah. Let's say I worked at a restaurant. And while I'm working there, I create this new type of cheese. Like I create a new formula or recipe for this great cheese. And they start using this cheese in their burgers. And eventually I leave the company. I leave the restaurant, and they keep using my cheese, and they keep making burgers with cheese. And you know what? They actually use the cheese better than I ever did, but they're still using this cheese I created. And then I come back, and I'm like, hey, where's my cut from this cheese? Cut the cheese. Anyway, and they're like, oh, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's my cheese. Give me my cut. And they're like, we're not going to do that. And I'm like, okay, well, then I'm going to take you to court unless you stop using this cheese. And then they go, oh, but everyone loves your cheese. Why can't we keep using your cheese? It's like, just pay me, and you can keep using my cheese. Like, it's the same thing. And then, then the company goes to all of its customers and goes, sorry, guys. This guy says we can't use his cheese anymore, so I guess... So, everyone make sure to blame him. Everyone make sure to blame him, despite the fact that we could just pay him and keep using his cheese. Blame him for the fact that our restaurant isn't as good anymore. Like, that's essentially what they did to Penders. And what I think... And one thing I think is that they were like, well, if we pay Penders, there are a lot of people who worked on this book along with him. Yeah. If we pay Penders, we might have to pay all of them. And it's like, I get... Pardon?
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, it's like, I get that, but at the same time, like, you dug that hole yourselves. Like, I simply, like, my argument is simply, like, I think it's much more on Sega than it is on Penders, is my take on the issue.
Yeah, I think definitely from like a legal perspective, yeah, it's definitely more on them. And and like, yeah, because you're right. Like they did use it as an excuse to like not bring anyone back because like he didn't create like Mina Mongoose, he didn't create Mammoth Mogul, but and he didn't create Scourge. Like Scourge is a separate thing from Evil Sonic, which he legally has the right to Evil Sonic somehow.
Yeah, that's so weird.
Yeah, but like, you know, they clearly use that as like a like, yeah, whatever. We wanted to, you know, I mean, and to be fair, at that time, like that's like around 2013, like that's around like Lost World about to come out, right? So it would make sense if like they're like, we have this like off-brand comic that like doesn't represent hardly anything about what we're making. This is a good enough excuse to reboot it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I could totally see that being the reason. But yeah, you're totally right that like legally everything goes to him, and it makes sense why he'd feel that way. I think where most people feel burned is that one, I think it's been like, so if that were around like 2013, it's been like however many years since then, and he still has not made the first issue of his story with Lara Sue. So it feels like, it's like, sure, you know, you have your reasons, but it's like, at what cost? Like literally nothing. Like you're not going to make it probably. Yeah, that's what I thought. And then just obviously from like a fan perspective, like it makes sense to be like, well, you didn't seem to have a problem with it for the longest time. Now you're back. You don't do anything with it, and we just have to suffer the consequences of like not even like, even if your thing sucked, we literally have not gotten a product out of this lawsuit, which is the reason you wanted it back so you could make something. So I understand both perspectives, but I agree with you that it is childish to think like oh, he has nothing going for him in terms of like a leg to stand on. Like he's completely in the wrong. It's like, well, no, legally he's in the right. As far as like him as a person, it makes sense why he would want these things. But I totally understand the fan outrage because he took away everything else too by either literally or just by the effect of like Sega being like, oh, this is a good enough excuse to reboot the franchise.
Yeah. So and I think, well, another thing is that he also wanted some level of creative control over, I want to say it was Lara Sue, maybe Julie, and a couple others. And it's like, so I can see them being like, no, we don't want this guy coming in and being involved with our franchise. It's like, okay, then just minimize those characters. Like, yeah,
I think that's the worst part on Sega's part, is the only characters they really would have needed to cut would have been Jeffrey, Julie Sue, and the King, like, or Elias. And Julie Sue, they already had an in-universe reason, which is the Tasmanian Devil stuff with whatever his name is, with, you know, the ending of that arc where they get taken. So then you just would have had to come up with a reason for Jeffrey, which you could have just easily had like, Ixis Nagus was in his body and it wasn't lasting, so he dumped it somewhere. So there you're done with Jeffrey.
Jeffrey's in a ditch somewhere.
Yeah, and nobody would have cared. And then as far as like Elias, like that one would have been a bit more hard. But I mean, hey, like if you have to do what you got to do, just say like, hey man, like he went on a mission and like some stuff happened.
Well, what I think is so weird is, and did you read like, because I've only read like post Genesis like Sonic Universe stuff. Did you read like the main book after that?
Oh yeah, I've read all of it.
Okay. So when Sonic comes back, when he gets dumped into the post-Genesis world, he remembers at least some of the pre-Genesis continuity, right?
Yeah, there's this whole thing where, like, the first 5 issues are, like, the whole purpose is to get Nicole to each of the members because she, like, stores some of the, like, she's, like, the in-between between the 2 dimensions, so every time they touch her, they regain those memories, and the point is to get everyone to regain their memories so they can have panic attacks, and so we can logically follow through. But then a crazy thing happens. We get to the issue before this little train arc, and right before that, Tails is like, hey, Sonic, you know, I'm starting to not be able to, like, remember stuff, like, I don't want to go to, you know, I don't want to like lose the memories of all these things we had. And Sonic's like, don't worry, buddy, I'll totally remember it. And then he like makes a face like, oh gosh. And then that's the last time we hear of it. They're gone. So presumably the next chapter, they all woke up and the timeline had completely merged and they don't have memories of it anymore.
Well, it's so weird because it's like you think that Sonic would wake up and just be like horrified that Elias, Mina, his parents, like all these people are just wiped from existence. Completely because of his failure during Worlds Collide, but just like, nope, just we're never gonna talk about it again. Like, yeah, I feel like at the very least they should have just. Well, also I think they should have just. I think keeping the original numbering was a mistake. I think they should have just gone back to number 1.
Yeah, like officially rebooted.
I guess I can only assume the reason that Ian Flynn had them remember for those first couple issues was so he could be like, no, you see, it's not like it didn't matter. It's just like, it's not a thing anymore. We're never going to talk about it ever again. Like,
yeah,
like,
well, I think the point of it is just, yeah, sorry. I think the point of it was just to actually transition instead of a hard reboot. So he's like throwing you a bone, basically.
Yeah. And I think it would have been better if he just rip the Band-Aid off, dude. Just have Sonic be dumped and be like, oh, what's happening? Oh, the Tails doll's doing stuff. That's weird. Well, I guess we should go do that. And like,
yeah, instead of teasing everybody.
And it's weird because I think it's like, you talked before about this like undying love that Sonic and Sally have that can like transcend time and space. It's like when he sees her for the first time in the post-Genesis universe, like he runs to her, he's crying, he's like, "Oh my God, you're not a robot anymore." And it's like, but hey, remember how we were like in love? Man, that was weird. Anyway, like
Hugsies, that's it.
Yeah,
not for too long, not too many panels.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, silly Sonic, I don't like boys anymore."
Yeah, of course. I like computers.
I might have to cut that joke out. Anyway.
No biggie. But yeah, I guess to wrap up my thoughts, because we'll have to end pretty soon.
Yeah.
So just to wrap up my thoughts, like overall, what I think I love so much about our pre-reboot Ian Flynn era Archie Sonic days. It's a mouthful. But just what I love about that era so much is it just embodies so much about these characters. Like before I read this comic, I never cared about any Sonic character other than Sonic and Blaze, and that was just because I played a Sonic, and Blaze has a cool design and fire powers, so I was like, oh, I like her. But I never cared about any of the characters. They never stood out to me too much in the games. And I know some people do have connections to those characters in the games, but it just never worked for me. But once I saw, like, just how much emotion and love had been packed into these characters, giving them true pathos and like emotion that tied into not only their personas from the game, so they're still recognizable as the characters we know and love, but just to expand upon it and just give it so much charisma and wit. Like the comic's legitimately funny and like just has a lot of moments of just like that make me smile consistently. And while I don't think it always nails it, I think the comic has this pure sincerity about it, where nothing about the pre-reboot days feels too artificial, because a lot of the stuff he does, he didn't have to do. He didn't have to bring back these certain characters. He didn't have to give these characters certain arcs. He didn't have to pay off storylines that previous writers did. He didn't have to bring certain characters back. And he certainly didn't have to write the Sonic characters with as much love and heart to them as he did, because he's clearly not been doing that less. He's been doing that less and less since. And so you can really see the effort and the passion he had. And I think that just bleeds through the whole story. And that's why I really love the pre-reboot days.
Yeah. For me, I didn't know we were doing this little like spiel at the end about why we loved Archie, so I'm gonna try and come up with something real quick.
No worries.
So I mean, I've gone over this briefly, but like the thing that originally drew me to Sonic, because when I grew up, I was not like a video game guy. I mean, I played video games obviously, but for me, like my favorite things were like comic books and superheroes. Like Spider-Man is still my favorite fictional character of all time, and the Archie comics and the lore they added are truly what made me a Sonic fan, because it treated these characters like, it didn't take it like with IDW, you feel like they're video game characters who are being put in these settings, whereas in that they just feel like normal comic book characters. Like they feel like, if you were to read like a Justice League comic, it's pretty similar. Whereas if you read like IDW now, it's very clear like they're taking these game archetypes. Whereas with Archie, they're not archetypes, they're characters, and they have all these emotions and depth. And it takes this concept, which by all right should not work. Like it's a blue hedgehog who's fast, fighting an egg-shaped scientist. Like it shouldn't work, but it does, and it does. It works like wonderfully. And I think it's really unfortunate that we've lost some of that in newer incarnations, and I think we can only hope that eventually, maybe through another shift at Sega, maybe someday some of those elements will come back.
Oh, definitely. Yep. So, dude, thank you so much for having me on this this little podcast thing we're doing. Can't wait to see like comments, and just if anyone else like, do you normally get comments of people like letting you know that like, oh, they read the pre-reboot days, or like, oh, they're only IDW? Like what's your kind of like fan base opinion on this little section of the story of Sonic's history?
I feel like I've gotten some comments. Like I think it's I haven't gotten a lot of like pre-reboot Archie like fans in my comments, and like of course this is when they'll all be like, but like I've gotten some comments being like, well, give IDW time because eventually they'll get to the heights of like Eggman Empire and House of Cards. But I've never run the, I will say for people in the comments, I cannot remember seeing comments like that. I'm sure they exist.
Of course.
But yeah. But yeah, I'm glad to have you. I hope we can have you again. Hopefully it doesn't take another year to have you back on.
No, definitely. Yeah, no, this was great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. But anyway, you want to plug some stuff real quick before we out, so have people go subscribe to you?
Yeah, once again, my channel is called Ian Waffles. I do anime analysis videos of characters.
Thank you for watching, everyone. If you liked this, be sure to leave a like, start subscribing, help grow the channel. Go head over to Ian's channel, go subscribe to that. It should be a lot of fun. Hopefully we can have him back on again. And yeah, as always, thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Take care.